I'm sorry, this music that, Spaces has now, I don't know what the heck this music is supposed to be. I was just a little I'm just a little surprised. I guess this is a new thing. But yeah, welcome to the rewind. I'm just dumbfounded by it. I just don't understand the music. So thanks, John. Thanks, Coach Bree, and thank you to Coach Timothy for joining us. And John, yeah, you write about JUCO, right? You've written about JUCO.
Yes, I have. That's basically what I do out here in California for the last 6 years, and then I took a coaching job out at MSU Denver for a second. But yeah, I write about JUCO basketball out in Cali.
Cool. Thank you. And Brendan is a current JUCO player. Um, so I have a few other people coming through. But thank you for joining the Rewind, where we discuss topics. I love hoop. I've been watching hoop since, man, I guess since I can walk. Because hoop was always in my home. I love hoop history. I'm old. I'm 50. So I've been watching hoop since I was, what do you say, 8, 9 years old. So I love the history of the game, and I tend to watch anything related to basketball and football. And I love to discuss topics that aren't on the front page of some of your top news programs. You won't find the subjects and I tend to talk about there, and a lot of history isn't discussed as well. But I was looking at Last Chance U when the second season launched, and it just got me thinking about, again, the first season I had these same questions, and the second season I had the same questions. So I said, you know what? I can't be alone in this. It's time to bring together some knowledgeable folks and have an open discussion about how JUCO works. How does this world work? How does a kid end up in JUCO, and how do they make it out of it? Some great players have come from JUCO, have made it to the Hall of Fame. Dennis Rodman, to name a few. Some of the great women that play the game also. But how do they get there? How do they make it out of there? Start thinking about stuff like the transfer portal. And this is a question I forgot to send you guys, sorry. But how does the transfer portal and how does that affect and after COVID, like how does that affect scholarships at Division 1 and 2 and opportunities? So that's what we are here to talk about tonight. JUCO basketball. How does coaching and playing the sport, how does it work, and where did you go after? Um, so before we get started with the rewind this week, I figured we can go around and have each speaker introduce themselves. So you can, yeah, so we can hear who you are. So let's go around. Let's start with John. John, we can start with you, and then we'll go to the coaches.
All right, bet. Well, my name's John Bynum. I'm originally from California. I played junior college basketball at College of Sequoias. I'm a little bit older. I went to College of Sequoias 96 through 98. Following that, I played at Metro State at a Division II basketball program. Won a national championship out there in 2000, and then I played overseas for 13 years. And then following that stint, I write for a junior college basketball website called Signal the Light Basketball that focuses on junior college basketball out in California. And I stopped doing it for 2 years, took a coaching job, a Division II coaching job as an assistant coach. And then following that, about 2 years ago after the COVID year, I left that, and then I went back to doing Signal the Light Basketball, which is a, like I said, a news service and scouting service for um, obviously California junior college basketball.
Thank you. Coach, your name just throws me off. Coach Timothy, here you go. And what would you like to be called on this stage, please? Can you let me know?
Yeah, Coach Tim is fine.
Okay, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. So, my name's Tim Dalbon. I'm actually a little bit unique. I played JUCO myself. I played at Tallahassee Community College. I was able to win a championship there, and then I went on to play Division II at Valdosta State in Georgia. We were able to win some championships there as well. And then afterwards, I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I was an assistant coach at Albany Technical College. I was the assistant for 1 year. And then I became the head coach, and this is year 3 for me as a head coach. Last year we were ranked, receiving votes to be nationally ranked, and we sent 2 guys Division I and 2 other guys Division II.
Thank you so much. Coach Bree.
I'm Coach Bree Brooks. I'm originally from Tyler, Texas, East Texas. I played at Weatherford Junior College my freshman and sophomore year. Graduated from there. We went to nationals my freshman year. I actually was like number one point guard in the nation in JUCO and top 10 player overall. Graduated from there, left and went to South Florida, the D1 in Tampa. Wasn't really mentally prepared for that. So the grind, all that other stuff. So it just kind of really checked out 100% my on me. But I ended up going into Arkansas Tech and graduating there to D2. Uh, Coming in and been coaching for 7 years now. My first 2 was assistant coach at Robert Lee High School in Tyler, Texas. Then I went to go become a head coach for 4 years. And then last year was my first year in JUCO as a coach at Tyler Junior College. Won a national title there on the girls' side. And now I'm at Kilgore College, coaching here and hopefully to win a national title there.
Thank you. Brandon, you can go. Brendan, you can go ahead.
Hi, hello. I'm Brendan Terry. I was at Crossroads High School for 4 years. I'm a current JUCO player now at Pensacola State. I also did a post-grad year at LA Premier Prep, which is also located in LA. So currently I'm hoping to get some championships likewise, like these other coaches and people that have come before me. And yeah.
Thank you. And Landon, you can introduce yourself, and then we can start our discussion. Landon Cummings. Anyone hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes, we
Yep.
did.
Okay, so Landon must have
Oh,
stepped away.
okay.
Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead,
I thought
Landon.
I
Go
hit the
ahead.
button and it didn't unmute it. Sorry about that. So my name's Landon Cummings. Grew up in Denver, Colorado. Currently, I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Went to Colorado Northwestern Community College. Played there a year. Transferred to Blue Mountain Community College up in Pendleton, Oregon. Played there for a year. Signed with Walla Walla University after that. After I finished playing, moved back to Utah, be closer to my kids. Um, Started my own youth basketball program about 6 years ago. Um, Merged my program with a bigger program to give the boys and girls a little bit different opportunity. Been following the JUCO world for quite a bit, and then recently I decided I'm going to start a recruiting service, help some young people get exposure, be seen by coaches. So any JUCO coaches in here, any small 4-year school coaches, let's connect. I definitely have players that have the potential to play at that next level out of high school, mainly focusing on class of 23s and 24s, girls and boys, point guards, combo guards, wings, posts. I got a couple transfer players. Um, so yeah, I stay in touch with the JUCO world pretty well, just through my up soon to release and soon to start recruiting service. And so big fan of Last Chance U, and decided to come in and give my 2 cents on the space today. Appreciate you for having me.
Thank you. Last Chance U was what sparked me to host this space. First of all, did any of you watch it Last Chance U at all? Like anybody watched it besides Landon and myself? No, because you're living it. So I guess you said, "No, I don't need to. I don't need to watch it."
I've
You
watched a
came off
few
like,
episodes. I haven't watched it all the way through.
Yeah, I love it. I 100% love it. I watched from the beginning when they first started at the football,
me
about
too.
what,
Yep.
6, 7 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've watched like the first couple episodes, but I've watched the football ones in the past, and obviously the first season that ELAC had. But I haven't watched the second season of ELAC yet.
Cool. This was a new. Go ahead, Brendan.
I was just gonna say I never really got the chance to watch it because I don't have a Netflix subscription. But like I've seen all of, like the clip based on like TikTok and like Twitter and all that, and I've known a lot of the players that were in it.
Coach Bree just let me know that there's a storm going on in Texas, and in case she loses power. So hopefully she's okay, but she may be in and out of our space today because she's dealing with extreme weather issues. So I wanted to start with when as I look at Last Chance U, one thing that you see in the football and in the basketball side is that with JUCO, players usually end up there with a grade when they have a grade. They have grade issues and can't get to that to stay in their Division 1 program, or they don't get recruited because they can't enter a Division 1 program because of their grades. Is Are there other reasons where people end up with your program, or you'll end up with a program? Brendan, you can answer this from in Landon, and answer this in either perspective, but you can answer it from a player perspective. But I was honest curious between with Coach Tim. How do players end up in? Where do you get? How do they come to you?
I mean, so I think it's a combination of both now because there's an influx of kids with all the COVIDs that happened. So there's certain classes that didn't get recruited like that, and then of course the transfer portal has completely just changed the entire landscape because even junior college coaches are looking to bring in guys that are experienced and have played at the Division 1 level and are kind of just looking to bounce back right back to that level. And it could be a multitude of things. It could be grades. It could just be they weren't satisfied with their playing time, or they think they could go to a higher level. It can just be a multitude of things. And then, like I said, now I think that it's changed to where you're just not getting a lot of kids that are just bad academically. Um, it's kids that just aren't getting recruited from a high school standpoint to a certain level because the Division 1s and a lot of Division 2s are so transfer portal heavy that a lot of these high school kids aren't receiving those offers that they once did.
You can go ahead, Brendan. Jump in and how and what made you go to the JUCO
Yeah, I
world.
mean, for me personally, it was like the best opportunity for me. Like I picked up a couple of Division 2 offers, but a lot of California ones give out partial scholarships. Whereas the national JUCO I'm at, like I've been blessed where I get a full scholarship for academics. They even pay for some of my flights to Florida, which is cross country, and all of that. So for me, that was the best option. And I've seen in a lot of cases, some kids who do make that first jump to D1 out of high school, they barely got that offer in like spring. So when they get there, it turns out they weren't ready. So then a lot of the time when they enter the transfer portal because the coach doesn't want them anymore, they're kind of forced to go to the JUCO level because they don't have any film on them in the collegiate level. Like all they had was high school stuff, and that's really hard for them to kind of get picked up on in the transfer portal, especially with older dudes who've been around for a really long time. So I've seen a lot. I've played against, and I've seen a lot of dudes who kind of had to come back because of that stance. And so like they're good enough players. It's just hard to really get a good grasp of where they're at in the last year or two.
Thank you, Brendan. Landon, you can go, and then Sandra.
So I kind of want to echo what one of the coaches said as far as um, offers and opportunities. My path to JUCO was a little less traditional because I struggle with grades in high school. So I was academically ineligible my junior and senior year. So I never actually played varsity basketball. And so my path to JUCO was more so of calling coaches, going to tryouts, going to walk on opportunities, competing against other kids that they were recruiting, and eventually getting my offers that way. So I took a little less traditional route there. But what I'm figuring out right now as I'm creating this recruiting service and talking to JUCO coaches right now is there's just a lot of kids that are under the radar that maybe aren't D1 or D2 ready right now that need that development. And so a lot of the coaches that I'm going to have visiting my website and looking at some of the kids that I'm going to feature on there are just looking for those under recruited players, because it's easy to hit the transfer portal for the kids that are experienced, that aren't going to have a problem finding a second school to play at, even if it is a transition year to bounce back. But the players that I work with are more of the good, 5A, 6A high school players that can play that nobody knows about. And so especially at the JUCO level where you only have 2 years, if the goal is to bring in a kid right now to help you tomorrow, that's a transfer portal kid for sure. A lot of the kids that I'm going to have in my recruiting service are going to work a lot more like, hey, come in, maybe redshirt a year, maybe play a little bit as a freshman, commit to that sophomore year, and then really be ready to transfer as juniors. And if they have that good freshman year, then maybe they're ready to go after that if they play against the right competition in front of the right coaches. So I think the JUCO route ends up being the route for a lot of different players for a lot of different reasons, but definitely a lot of the reasons that the guys mentioned earlier. We have Salt Lake Community College, and they lost the national championship, the JUCO D1 national championship. They lost that, and they are a top 5 team this year. And I think every player on that team is going to end up at a Division 1 school. So that's not the ideal landing spot for some of the kids that I'll work with. But there's a lot of smaller schools, even D2 JUCOs and other schools like that will definitely be landing spots for a lot of the kids that I'm going to end up working with. So I think there's a lot of stories behind it, and I think that's what makes the JUCO route compelling and interesting to a lot of people is different people end up in the same spot for different reasons, and some of them are happy to play JUCO ball, and that's their end goal, and some want to get out of there and get back to a 4-year school. So that's kind of the fun part to me of watching it and listening to some of these kids' stories.
Sandra, you got your hand up. You want to hop in here?
Yeah, I think the kind of how it was mentioned as far as the grades, and especially now with transfer portal, of course, that gets brought up a lot. I was a JUCO product. Grades was not the reason that I was a JUCO product. Like some of the other individuals mentioned, some kids just don't really get that exposure. I'm from Denver, Colorado. With us, you see, Ann Strother, who went to UConn. You have Faye Mueller that went to UNLV. If you're not on that type of level, and both of them were 6'4", you kind of get overshadowed. And so you don't really get the exposure or kind of get that spotlight. And that was a reason why myself and a lot of the girls that I grew up with playing, we all ended up going JUCO. We were all 3.2, 3.3 GPA graduates. All of us went JUCO. A lot of us went on to Division 2 schools. A couple went on to Division 1s. I now have the luxury of not only going into my second year of college coaching, but I'm now a coach at the school that I played for. So I get to look at kids who are in that same situation that have the grades that just might not have gotten the looks. And of course, now transfer portal plays a huge part and plays a lot more into, does a coach want to take a chance on a high school senior, or do they want somebody that's a little bit more not really invested but has that experience? So when I'm looking for girls, especially because I'm recruiting for the team that I played for, I feel like I have a way to kind of connect with girls the same way the coaches connected with me when I was 18, 19. Um, but it's never, oh, I got to go out and find girls that aren't passing classes, or I got to go find girls that are failing. Most of the girls that I'm recruiting, even the girls I coached last year, were 3.5, 3.7 kids. They just didn't get the opportunities to showcase themselves in the way that some other girls in their areas did.
I am so glad to hear that because I swear, with Last Chance, case after case of Last Chance U, grades was the issue. So I appreciate hearing the other ways in which someone ends up with JUCO. Charles, you want to jump in here? You're on the football side, right? Am I reading your profile correctly?
Yes, ma'am. I ain't gonna
Okay.
lie. I'm gonna agree with Coach Cummings. Everybody's situation is different when it comes down like going the JUCO route. I'm gonna speak on mine. In high school, in ninth grade, I played. That was my first time actually playing high school football. And once I filled out the team and everything else just went on how it went, I actually dropped out of high school and I had to get my GED. So in the midst of me going to JUCO route, I had to actually go walk on. I actually had to prove myself and show myself, hey, I'm worth whatever I say. Like I'm play running back. This is what I do. And I was actually willing to work for anything. I actually had to take the hardest route there is. I ain't getting no scholarship. I had to pretty much figure it out by myself, but I had to earn my spot on the team. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody's situation be different. I can actually speak on a lot of people's situations. Like I got a couple partners who actually trying to get the FBS offers. They came out of high school with FCS or D2, NAI, and you got some players who come out of high school and didn't have nothing. They only had JUCO. You know what I'm saying? But I was one of them players who had to actually go walk home to a JUCO and actually show myself. You know what I'm saying? That was like my whole little journey when it goes down there. Actually going to Kilgore College, being from Houston, Texas, and actually having to shut. I had to walk home twice after getting told no once. So that's like my whole idea, just like the Last Chance U when it goes down just going to JUCO route. Everybody's story be different though.
I appreciate that. Now, my next question is going to go to those who coached, and if you did coach, jump in here. How does recruiting work? Like, you're ready to recruit your next season. You gotta start looking at who you want to bring in, who is going to be on your team. How does that whole process work? I am just so curious.
Are you talking about recruiting from a 4-year level to the 2-year level, or from high school guys going into junior college?
All
Or
of it. Yes, all of it. Like, I don't know anything about any of this. So
well,
assume you're talking to you're talking to someone who has no knowledge of how any of this works. So yeah, all of it.
I'll speak, just from my perspective. I'm sure, the guys with a little bit more coaching experience, but from my assistant coaching experience and from what I do know from, the situations that I've been part of, from the 4-year level, if you're looking at a junior college kid or a high school kid, well, we're talking about junior college, so let's just keep it there. Most of the time when you bring in a junior college player, you want experience at a certain position for the most part. So if you're freshman heavy, meaning that you have a lot of freshmen and younger classmen on your team, you probably want to bring in a junior college player to add some experience for one. Um, you know, Obviously, if you're bringing in a junior, you for the most part, a junior is going to be better than a freshman just based off of experience. Not all the time, don't get it wrong. But for the most part, I think when you bring in a junior college kid, you're bringing them in to produce right away from the 4-year level. Um, I don't know if that made sense at all, but that's how. Sorry, my little man, he back here in the background trying to say something too. But from the high school level to a junior college level, I mean, it differs from various states because I know California in junior college basketball or junior college athletics, they don't give scholarships out like national junior colleges. So it's a very different situation because California is very unique from the National Junior College Association, the NJCAA.
Thank you, Coach Tim.
So I'll give you like my personal experience. Since I've been here, in 3 years, we've kind of gone the route of taking a lot of transfers, just because there was a lot of experience. So, how I look at it is obviously position need base. So we'll identify that both of our from the JUCO level, both of our point guards are sophomores. That's obviously a position that we're going to need to start recruiting early. And that's not to say that we don't recruit high school kids. We definitely get out there. It just ends up being that the transition period is a lot quicker. And with transfers, it's really like relationship based. If I have a friend that's at UCF or something, and the kid's leaving there, then now I already know of it. So with the transfer, it works a little bit different. But I'll be honest. From there, I think that there has to be a balance. You can't just go all transfer kids because some kids are transferring for different reasons. They're not all leaving because of playing time. Some of them actually have good stats, and it could be a Division II kid that has a really good freshman year, and now he wants to go Division II, so he goes the junior college route to kind of try to take a gamble on himself. Um, so like everybody really touched on, it's a lot different. But from a recruiting standpoint, because this year I'll lose 10 sophomores. So I have a whole group that I have to bring in. Just like last season, I lost 85% of my production. So I knew when I lost a lot of my production early that I was going to go the transfer route because it would kind of be a quicker replacement, but that doesn't mean that it was gonna just gel, because that's also the misconception is you're taking a lot of kids from a lot of different places, and kind of expecting it to just come together automatically, but nothing in life works like that.
Thank you. Landon, you have your hand up. You want to hop in here?
Yeah. So the going back to the recruiting service that I'm starting, the fun part about talking to coaches is I created what I call the coaches wish list. And so all the coaches that I get on phone calls with, I send them this little Google form, and they fill it out, and it literally asks for your 23 and 24 classes, what positions do you know you need? And it gives the coaches an opportunity to tell me, hey, I need a stretch four. Hey, I need a pass first point guard. Hey, I need a 3-and-D player. And I love that because it cuts out a lot of the questioning of, well, I know this kid has talent and this kid wants to move on and play at another level, but I don't know what coach I should give this player's film to or this player's name to. So that's been a fun part about what I'm doing is I I let the coaches tell me what kind of players they're looking for, and then I go through a list of all the players that I'm working with, and I kind of say, "Hey coach, check this kid out. If you need contact info, let me know." And that's been a fun part about it because some coaches are looking for guys or girls, players that are going to come in and have that immediate impact, and some have that, oh well, we're guard heavy this year, so if I bring in a guard, he can play a few minutes now and then he can take over when this guy leaves, kind of thing. So that's been a really fun part about getting to know some of these coaches is a lot of different coaches are looking for a lot of different things, and there's so many talented kids out there that may or may not be on coaches radars, and for me to be able to help be the middleman between under recruited players and coaches. Like coach said, he's losing 10 players. I guarantee if I sat down with coach, I'd have 3 or 4 of those spots filled for you over the next couple of weeks. And so um, that's the fun part is some coaches are looking for those players that are ready to come in and play. Some coaches are want to grow that talent and kind of teach them how to do it their way and then turn it over to them after a year or so. So that's kind of a my 2 cents on how the recruiting process works is coaches know what they're looking for, but sometimes a player says, "Oh well, I live in this city and there's a JUCO right down the street from me, and I don't know why they're not recruiting me." That school probably doesn't need a player in your position, where a school in a neighboring state or a connecting state or maybe across the country is dying for a player like you, but they don't know you're out there.
Thank you,
Also,
Landon.
Coach
Yeah.
Sandra, shout out to NJC. As a Colorado native, as a Denver native, I love NJC. My little brother went there, so shout out to NJC.
Oh, of course. I'm an NJC grad as well. So depending on when your brother was there, I may or may not know him, but of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy. How does recruiting work for you in your program?
So I graduated from a JUCO and I went to a HBCU, and I feel like those two kind of categories of athletics are often two that are downplayed or talked down upon. And I feel like, especially with some HBCUs, you'll hear, "Oh well, I won't go after this kind of kid because they won't pick us, or we might not be good enough, or we don't have the funds, so I'm not even gonna waste time." I go after any kid I see. If they say no, they say no. But of course, I'll have exactly what I'm looking for. I want bigs that can score. I want bigs that can move their feet well. I want bigs that can run the floor well. I want guards that can shoot. So of course that's going to be kind of my underlying, like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'll put up that I'm looking for. But if I see a kid that's getting some D1 or D2 looks, I'm definitely going to say, hey, let me tell you about NJC. If you don't want to hear it, cool, that's fine. If you do want to hear it, just to kind of keep that option open, I'm willing to do that as well. I've talked to kids, one girl that's a guard at Hofstra right now, another girl that's a guard at Hartford out in on the East Coast. Like, I have no reservations when it comes to looking at kids or when it comes to talking to kids. But one thing for sure that I think, especially since, and I'm assuming probably since COVID, I think Twitter and social media in general has definitely picked up for recruiting and is giving kids an opportunity to showcase themselves in situations that I wish in 2005 we had that option. So being able to get on spaces like these, or being able to get on recruiting spaces and having highlight tapes and using Huddle and using Synergy and just things that we didn't have or that I didn't have when I was 17 and 18, these kids now have the opportunity to do. So any kid that's, willing to put a video out, I'll look. That doesn't mean that that's something that I'm looking for, but coaches talk. And I think that's one thing that kids need to understand. Just because you won't fit with me doesn't mean you won't fit at the next school who I may know the coach here. My brother is a Division I associate head coach. So there's plenty of times where he'll call me like, I can't take this kid, but you might want to look at her. Or, hey, I heard about this kid in Georgia that, meets y'all GPA requirement. I heard she can hoop. Y'all might want to take a look at her. So like I said, coaches talk. So I look kind of wherever I can find kids or wherever I can kind of get some information, and by networking and things like that. Those are the ways that I kind of run my recruiting.
Thank you, Joseph. Am I spelled saying your name right? And Brendan, will come to you since you're coming from the player perspective. Just how do you recruit your
Yeah.
players?
So first, thanks for having me on. Sorry, I didn't accept that first invite because I've got my little one in my hand, and I know he was gonna want to try to say something like John's little man over there. So I kind of held off until I got him calmed down. But recruiting kind of comes as like a two-way street for us. We brought in a class of 9 freshmen, and majority of them were qualifiers out of high school. Some we're committed to Division II schools, and for some reason drop back down to us, whether it been coaching change or just kind of change our heart. So with that situation, it makes us like a little different for us because it's like we have to do our job on our end and contacting these 4-year schools and making sure like our films getting out on these guys because yeah, they're freshmen, but if we have the opportunity to move them on to D2 or D1 schools, we're going to work hard to get them there, so they can kind of move on and continue their career. Um, but if it doesn't work out for them, obviously they have another year to stay with us. But on top of those 9 freshmen, we also have 3 or 4 returning guys. So it's just, it just kind of works out. Okay, what look is this freshman getting right now? Or is anyone really talking to him? How's his stats looking? Like, do we really need to try to push him to, like, is he ready to like push over to a 4-year? or do we need to probably keep him for another year? That way he can, he can still, get his credits and, have another year under us and, just kind of, build his stats up or build his resume up. So again, like that, it's kind of a two-way street. Another thing that we also kind of run into is, what everyone else has been really talking about is the transfer. So, we'll get guys out of high school that they'll go to a mid-major or, to a low-major school, and they just figure out it's just not the place for them. And, if we keep those connections, quite a few guys on our coaching staff coach AAU. So we know the guys through the program or, however we, build that connection with their high school coach or their AAU coach. And, if it turns out that, just like Coach Tim said, if we know a guy and we know that, hey, he's not getting as much playing time wherever he's at, he's probably going to want to drop down to JUCO for a year. We know we're going to start looking to, kind of watch some games, see how he's doing. If we see, he's not on, he's not getting on the floor, we'll kind of keep tabs on him. And, we know like once, his name jumps in the transfer portal that, we can get on him right away, see if he wants to come back closer to home and, and try a year JUCO out. That way we can kind of get him pushed back to where he wants to be.
Thank you. Brendan, how were you recruited? I'm curious about your process from a player perspective and what you were looking for.
Oh, well, I mean, for me personally, it's kind of just been like a crazy roller coaster, I guess, because it's it's kind of weird because especially coming out of high school, you have all these options
That
of.
background music is killing me, but keep going.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm walking away. I'm at team dinner, but I just walked out. Um, Basically, it's just funny because like coming straight out of high school, it's like some JUCOs reached out, but not nearly as much after my post grad year because a lot of them kind of started realizing a lot of players rather take the post grad year route just so you don't use a year of college because a lot of people have the mindset, oh, I just need that one extra year to get a little bit older, a little bit better. And that was my mindset coming out of high school. So after my post grad year, and I didn't really get a lot of the looks I didn't want, I played maybe one unsigned senior event, and I had a lot of JUCOs reach out saying, "Oh, I think we can get you here for 1 year," and a lot of them did. They kind of talked a little bit about how they can help get me recruited to the next 4 year level, whether that be D1 or whatever. And a lot of them also just said, "We're going to help you as a man. We're going to help you get like used to being an academic and just stuff like that." So it's kind of been a weird process, but for the most part, a lot of the recruiting is just like from a coaching, recruiting me standpoint, a lot of it is just kind of them giving me promises of I can help you become a better person. Most of them don't really talk about as a basketball player only. A lot of them want to say I can help you out, like your personality, like your work ethic and stuff like that. And they'll say if I commit to them, they'll commit to me and they'll help me move on. And from my perspective, I've also just kind of noticed you want to go to the best place possible. Like you want to go to an environment like a really good culture. Like I'm in a lucky situation at Pensacola State because we're one of the top national JUCOs in the country. Like we play those top teams. Like we're probably in the best conference in the nation. So when we start conference play in like 2 weeks, that's a hard sell from a recruiting standpoint because it's like I think it's like 40 D1 players came out of our league in the last year or last 2 years or something like that. So it's a hard sell just saying stuff like that. And also it just shows if I can play here, I can play anywhere in the country because if it's 40 D1 players all playing against each other, that's basically D1 basketball. So that's kind of like the sales that I've been getting. And also just the fact that it's like a full scholarship. It's you get full housing, you get food, you get all that. It kind of feels D1 in that sense, if that makes sense.
Hence, because one of the things Brendan and I talked, communicated about going back and forth in this message is he was also recruited by ELAC, but he chose to go the route that he went because one of the, like you said, you wanted to strike out on your own, but California also doesn't have scholarships, right? Like ELAC, there's no scholarships, so
Yeah, a
that
lot
played a
of
part in it. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, but a lot of California schools like they're not able to provide you with housing. And me personally, I wanted to kind of get out of LA and kind of like spread my wings and kind of be my own man. I don't like I love my parents. I'm in a really lucky situation to have both of them support me. I have a really good support system, but it's just time to grow up. Like I'm 19 years old. I can't just sit in my mom's house and then just go like that. Like I felt it was necessary for me to move, and I could have moved to another California JUCO, like up north or anything like that, but it would have been difficult for me and my family to rent an apartment now because I'm away from home and kind of feed myself and do all this. Because although I might get financial aid and Pell Grant, especially in California, as we know, housing prices are insane. That can only do so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Brendan. John, do you want to ask a question? Because I wanted to go on to communicating about playing time. Okay. Next question I have for everyone is, for Brendan, it'll be the opposite. Like, how was playing time? How was that explained to you? And did it work out that way? For the coaches, how do you talk about playing time with your players? Like, is that, like, how do you get them to buy in on the playing time they have, or if people don't even get to play that much? How do you handle the disappointment from players who need playing time to get noticed, but they're not getting that much because there are players ahead of them in rotation? And how do you communicate playing time as a whole? So I was curious about that, and we can go around with the coaches first and then the player. So, Sandra, you can start off. Go right ahead.
So during the recruiting process, I don't talk about playing time just because you can be an amazing guard here and then come in and maybe not work as hard as I think you should, or maybe, what the expectations that we had of you aren't necessarily being met. So I know, there's some kids that may want to hear, oh, you're going to start, you'll play 30 minutes every game. I don't do that. I'll let players know, here's what our expectations are. Here's what we want of our guards. Here's what we want of our post players. If you can do this, you can see the floor, but I won't promise, you'll get 15, 20 minutes, anything like that. On the flip side of that, one question that I hate getting from players is, how come I didn't play? How come I didn't play? Why y'all take me out the game? Why'd I get subbed out? How come I didn't? And my follow up to that has always been, why did you deserve to play? Like, what have you done in practice? What have you done outside of practice to give us the reason to think that you would have helped in that situation? Granted, there's always going to be games where I may have messed up. I probably should have got this kid in a little bit more. But instead of asking, and I think Coach Rob talked about it a lot in the first season, don't ask why I'm not playing. Tell me what you did in the time that you got. If you only got 5 minutes, tell me why your 5 minutes was so productive that we should have given you 10 or we should have given you 20. Um, I did that with a lot of players last year, and they hated it at first. And then I think later on into the season, they kind of understood it a little bit more. But every player is not going to play every game. Some are, and some aren't. I had games where the girl that we wanted to be our starting point guard was coming off the bench just because she didn't fit in that situation, or I felt like she wasn't going as hard or giving as much effort as we needed her to. So as far as promising playing time, I know Don Staley talks about it a lot, that she never talks about playing time when she recruits kids, because I can tell you in June that you'll get 30 minutes a game, and then in November you might not. So I don't ever want to set an expectation that I cannot meet, but I will set an expectation of, you need to be in the gym outside of practice. You need to be in the gym doing this. You have to make sure your grades are right. I won't play a kid that's failing classes because that's not helping me, nor is it helping you. So I'd rather you go study than be worried about getting you in this game. So I kind of look at it like that, but I don't I don't necessarily think it's a way, nor is it productive to tell a kid months before they get on campus that they're going to play X amount of minutes. Because truth be told, I might not be able to promise you that come November and December.
Just a quick follow up. Do you have someone on your staff, or does anyone babysit, not babysit, but really stay on players with their academics, or you don't babysit them on that level?
So that was me last year. I actually stayed on campus, so I was literally right next to the dorm that the players were in. We had a really good thing. I was at Colby Community College last year. So we would get an email every day that let us know what our players' grades were, who went to class, who didn't go to class. So we would be able to see every single day if a kid was having any issues with grades or having any issues with classes. But I was the one that would just pop up in a class, or I would show up, or I would try to make girls go to study hall. That was me last year. My assumption is it's probably going to be me again this year, just because I start my new job in a couple days. But like I said, I graduated. I have a couple degrees now. I'm a couple classes away from getting my master's. So academics is always going to be a huge thing. And I can't sell a kid that won't take care of their grades to anybody. So I'll stay on them, especially with me being on campus and with me living closer. I think as an assistant coach, that's something that we have to take control of, because head coaches have an extreme list of things that they have to take care of, to where adding them doing grade checks is just making it a lot harder on them. So I'll pop up in a class. I'll go to teachers and ask what this kid may need help on. I'll send out grade reports for kids just to make sure that they're taking care of everything on their end.
Thank you so much. Coach Tim, you can hop in here and give your perspective as well.
Yeah, so I'll kind of touch a little bit on what she said. For me, one of the biggest things is I've never talked playing time, especially early in the recruiting period. For me, it's more so the opportunity, because just being at a national JUCO and just playing a lot of good competition, these kids are going to get a lot of different exposure. And one of the unique things is it's something like a jamboree where it's like preseason, and it kind of gives you a gauge to see where your guys where they are, and it also gives them a big exposure in front of a lot of different coaches. So pretty much early on, that's why I don't speak playing time, because you can come on campus and by the time you're on campus, you're a completely different player. Um, so I kind of use just the jamborees. And then one of the biggest things for us is that I preach early just how important practice is. You're going to practice 4 to 5 times more than you're going to ever play. So who are you on an everyday basis is going to determine a lot of kind of what you reap, what you sow, reward type deal. So are you doing the daily habits that need to be? And that's something that obviously in July, June, May, when you're recruiting the kid, you have no idea. It's a completely different ball game when you have them on campus and they're going through the day to day. And at the same time, we always preach next man up and just making a big competition. So we never, for me personally at this level, you don't want people just to be satisfied all the time with their role. You want them to keep competing. Obviously, with that, there comes a lot of genuine conversations and letting them know where they are in the process and just being straightforward where they are in the depth chart and minute wise is something that I think players respect when you have the honesty to kind of let them know why they're not where they're supposed to be.
I appreciate that. Also, like, how much time do you guys have left? I want to allow about 2 or 3 questions if the audience has them. So if you have questions, raise your hand, and you will get to ask a question. If anyone in the panel, if I don't see a question, we'll just go to last questions, and because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Brendan, from your perspective, how do you feel about how you've been communicated with on playing time? And how do you feel about how that how much works for you and how you feel about that?
I would have to say I have to agree pretty much with a lot of people say. Like, I'll kind of get, when I was recruited last summer, coaches would tell me like, "Oh, if you come here and do your business, like you're gonna get playing time." Like, there would kind of be the expectation, like, I expect you to be getting. They wouldn't say any minutes, but they say I'd expect you to play well, because some of the coaches were kind of saying like, "Oh, I expect you. You're a qualifier because you have good grades. I expect you 1 year and you're out." Like, I'm kind of recruiting you for that, and then the following year, I'm going to be recruiting someone to steal your position. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, like one way or another, you're kind of gonna have to leave. I've gotten a lot of those from a lot of JUCO coaches, but for the most part, it's just been handle your business. Like, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, like, you're gonna see the court, no matter whether that be defensively, offensively, like both ways on the court. Especially where I'm at now, like, I can say this, like, beginning of the year, I thought I was going to be a starter right away, like bona fide. Like, I thought I was doing enough in practice. We played our first jamboree, and I was coming off the bench. And then first few games of the season, I was coming off the bench. And for me, I didn't really go to my coaches and say, "Oh, why am I not starting?" I don't think I ever brought that up. I just kept playing in practice, kept doing what I thought was my job, and luckily for me, the last 2 games I've been able to start, and I've been getting a lot more minutes than the beginning of the season. So I've kind of been given the expectation that if I handle my business, I'll play. And to me, I feel like I've been handling my business, and now I'm playing. So it's been pretty genuine in that respect. So I don't really have anything negative to say about minutes for my personal, from what happened to me personally.
No, I appreciate that. I was watching, like my only experience, of course, is watching Last Chance U. Then you had some people who used to starting and used to getting all these minutes, and then they got to JUCO, they got to ELAC, and they weren't starting, they weren't playing. And it's like that jolt of expecting to, play a year in college and go to the league. And now I can barely, you know what I mean? I'm barely getting minutes on a JUCO level. What is going on here? So it's like that's why I was kind of curious about how coaches manage like players like that. Go ahead, Sandra. Go ahead.
One thing we talked about, Coach Payne, that's on here. He did a Spaces yesterday, I think it was, about the second season of Last Chance U. But one thing we talked about when it came to Damani is I think he was a great kind of introduction or a great example of everybody has a role. And so I think rather than talk about playing time, like let's talk about what your role on this team could be. If you're going to be that person that's going to take charges every game, I can use somebody that's going to do that. You'll get more playing time if you're going to go in and take charges all day, which is exactly what Damani did. Offensively, he probably wasn't top 10 on the team, but he put his body on the line and put his body in positions that other players weren't going to do. If you're going to play defense, if you're going to rebound, if you're going to make the right pass, those are the things that coaches need to see. So rather than talk about playing time, let's talk about what expectations are. If I know that I can put you on the floor and you're not going to turn the ball over or you're not going to take shots that don't fit into our offense, you'll play. If I know I have a kid on the team, and you're looking at Dez from season 1 and season 2, season 1 he was a defensive player. It may have sucked, but you got yourself on the court because you played defense, because you were that person where the best player on their team, I know Dez is better than that person on their team. So each team, each coach has whatever their specific roles are. I feel like younger players, if you can get into a mindset of, okay, I'm not going to score 30 a game, but I might be able to go in, take 2 or 3 charges, get 5 or 6 rebounds, and the 5 minutes you got last game may turn into 10 minutes the next game, or may turn into 15 minutes the next game. So understanding, having the conversation of, coach, what is my role? What does this team need? What do I need to do to be successful on this team versus how come I'm not playing? I feel like the answers that you'll get from those questions will be much different. And the answer to the second question is probably going to get you a little bit more insight than just why am I not playing?
I appreciate that thorough. I appreciate you guys giving me this response because Um, that was one thing that stood out when watching Demetrius, who is the son of an NBA player, and he had these expectations, and they were like, he needs to be knocked down to reality, and it was like that feedback from some of the coaches when they were speaking to the camera. So I appreciate you guys giving me that insight on how to kind of manage those expectations. I'm winding down with questions. I'm looking at the time, and I want to be respectful of your time. And I'm probably going to have a follow up space because I feel like everything didn't get answered. We didn't even get into. I wanted to get right to how JUCO works and do a follow up space on Last Chance U, give more people a chance to watch it, and we'll just discuss that. And Coach Payne, I'm sorry I missed your space, but we're following you now, so I won't miss the next one because I would love to talk about this with people that actually watched it. But I was curious with JUCO, um, when you look, like with players you may see that are standouts in your program that you feel should earn a spot on the next level, get a scholarship, Division 1 or 2. Do you ever feel disappointed yourself if that doesn't happen? How do you deal with being emotionally involved? Do you ever get emotionally involved with students and then have to deal with like the pressures of helping them get to the next level? And if it doesn't happen, how do you deal with that? Coach Tim, Coach Sandra, how do y'all deal with that? Or do you deal with that?
I think for every coach at some point that's going to happen. Like talking about Demetrius, I feel like it's an expectations or it's being realistic type situation. Everybody wants to go Division One. Everybody wants to play for Don Staley. Everybody wants to play for Gino Ariema. Everybody is not good enough to play for those coaches. Does that mean that you can't move on to the 4-year level? Absolutely not. There's amazing Division Two, Division Three, NAIA programs that a lot of players can go play for, and I feel like some kids, Coach Payne talks about it a lot. Some kids have this D1 or bust mentality. In those situations, it is a little upsetting to, have a kid that feels like if I don't go D1, I'm a failure. That's not realistic. I had a chance to go D1. I had a chance to go to University of Denver. I tore my ACL, and University of Denver wanted nothing to do with me after that. It happens. It's part of it's part of the game. It's part of life. I had to move on. I, however, went on and played for a Division two program that was ranked number 19 in the nation my senior year. So me not going D1 hurt, but me being able to play for Shaw, for me to play in that HBCU environment, for me to play for a team that was ranked top 20 in the nation, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And so I think having those realistic conversations with players, yeah, you are good enough to go to the 4-year level, but Division One just might not be it. And I feel like it is sometimes upsetting for players for them to hear that they may not be as good as they think they are. But that's still not going to stop me from helping a kid. I'll send videos out to as many coaches as I can. I'll also be honest with the responses that they get. So if coaches are like, oh, she's too small, she's not strong enough, she doesn't shoot the ball well enough, I'll make that clear to them. This is what they wanted. You don't meet that. However, the school in Virginia wants exactly what you can give. This school in North Carolina wants exactly what you can give. So do you want to not pay attention to them and only focus on schools that don't really want you right now? Or do you want to focus on where you can go play and get a degree?
Thank you. Yeah, Coach Tim, go right ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty. One of the hardest things about JUCO is that of course they still have that grasp of hope to go Division One. So that's a constant battle that you're always having to fight. Is that you want to get rid of that D1 bust mentality, but they've had that dream and aspiration for so long. So it's a constant fight that just like we sacrifice a lot to win, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. Every team in the country is doing the same thing. So, it's a harsh reality, but a reality that a lot of JUCO kids face is that, especially early, every kid comes in thinking, they're a Division I player. And then quickly, it's a humble process that takes part where, like we said, you thought you were just going to, because you were a Division I transfer or Division II transfer, come in and play right away. And now you're at a junior college sitting on the bench. And then, I think that it just teaches them life. Like, you could have a goal, but then you can come up short. So, how do you respond to that? And then one of the biggest things is that regardless, I played Division II, so I'm a D2 advocate. It's a lot of Division IIs and NAIA programs that could beat Division Is and that honestly have better lives that they can offer, educations and, even small things, gears, hotels and stuff. And then, you're still able to compete for championships. So I think in reality, it just shows them what life is. And, that's sometimes aiming for something and, it doesn't always happen. And then, when it does, it, of course it is, like one guy, he didn't get his Division I till July for us. So, when that happened, that was huge because the kid, was kind of passing up on some Division IIs that had some amazing situations for him. But, it's kind of like that gamble on himself, and then you see it kind of pay off. And that's kind of fruitful in itself.
I appreciate that. Now I'm looking at the time. I see no hands. So what I want to do is we talked about a few things that are on a basic level for this conversation, but I want to go around to everyone. Is there anything you want to share with people about Division One? I mean, not about Division One, about JUCO ball that you feel people should know, or it would be a good nugget for potential players for JUCO to know about that we haven't discussed tonight? Feel free to share that now, and let them know. And while you guys are thinking about what to say, this doesn't exactly fit into the flow of our discussion, but if you watched Last Chance U, the new season, one player that stands out that was just disturbing his story was Shamar Morrow, who won two state championships. You know, he pretty much thought he was going pro. That's what he was told that. That's what he believed. But his academics were a serious issue. He didn't graduate from high school. He had to get his GED, and then he was at ELAC, but then they said he was the most talented player, but he didn't know structure. So when you his story just seems so sad, and or is it I don't know, like this doesn't seem like his story may be even common, but it was just shocking that he got two state championships. He didn't graduate from high school. And that's one thing that's holding him back, is that his, like on another level with the academics. Um, when you see a player that has that much talent, like Sandra, I wanted the coaches to kind of speak to that, and then you guys can, we'll go around and get your last thoughts that you want to share with people about JUCO, and we'll close out. But we'll have Sandra and Coach Tim, Coach Sandra and Coach Tim give their perspective on that.
So, oh, so
Go
I
ahead,
think the
Tim.
number one, even if like I had to leave it on the last gem, is that transcript determines everything. And that's a harsh reality that a lot of JUCO players kind of end up choosing their own course. And that's just because there's certain requirements uh, that they don't bend, they don't break. So that's something that you do see a lot, where a kid could have Division I talent or even have Division I interest, but he just doesn't qualify or just doesn't take his academics serious to be able to put himself in that position to go Division I. So he's not at a 2.25 or higher. Now he's is he at a 2.3? And that in itself, even he could drop down lower. And I think so. One of the biggest things is that transcript determines your level. Every kid thinks that they're a Division I player, but quickly, the transcript itself will send them in a certain direction.
That's key. Yeah, go ahead, Coach Sandra, if you can give your perspective.
I definitely agree. I think the my biggest piece of advice would be JUCO does not equal failure. Like, not being able to get those Division I or Division II looks right away doesn't mean that you're not a good player. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough to get to that level. It maybe just means that you need a little bit more work in certain aspects. Um, any coach that you talk to, I've never heard a Division I coach badmouth a JUCO. I've never heard a Division II coach badmouth a JUCO. I have heard that from individuals that have not played at the college level, to where they'll say, "Oh, if you go JUCO, you must suck or you're not good enough." That's not the reality. So I think that would be the biggest piece of advice. As far as the Shamar thing, that situation broke my heart. I feel like there's a lot of people that give terrible advice to kids, and his situation is a great example of people who put his athletics well before anything else in his life, well before him having somewhere to sleep, well before him getting his high school diploma or his GED. And he gets to a position where he does not have his GED, he does not have anywhere to sleep, and those same people that told him, "Oh, you're going to go pro, you're going to be great in the NBA," now none of them are anywhere to be found for him. Um, so definitely pay attention to who you're listening to. Pay attention to who's in your circle, who's actually supporting you, and who's just looking to kind of hang on to your coattails. But if you have to go JUCO, that's not failure. That's not. Jimmy Butler went JUCO. If you look up, if any of you know Shay Kelly, she played JUCO. Amari Stoudemire's little sister played JUCO. I played against her my freshman and my sophomore year, actually. Um, these are all Division I athletes. Jimmy Butler is in the NBA right now, so there's no, if I go JUCO, I can't make it. That's not. There's no pathway that says if you start here, you can't finish somewhere else.
Dennis Rodman is in the Hall of Fame. He started with
Right.
JUCO. Um, so for sure, like Mitch Richmond and some other names I read, but I really appreciate that. Landon, do you want to get in here? And Brendan, any last thoughts you want to share and any advice to JUCO play potential JUCO players or anything like that too? Landon and then Brendan.
Yeah. Um, so first of all, I'll definitely say JUCO is a grind. JUCO is not easy. JUCO will definitely test your love for basketball because you'll feel so many highs and lows, and the emotional roller coaster of junior college basketball will really make you question, why am I here, if you're really pushed and tested. um the thing I like about Last Chance is it's so relatable, and I was in JUCO 20 years ago and I still feel the same way, and I see them going through the same things that I dealt with not having money to eat and waiting for coaches to grab you a meal and different stuff like that. So it'll definitely test that passion for basketball. But when you come out on the other end, you're definitely stronger, not only a better basketball player, but it'll teach you a lot of life lessons through that JUCO experience. The Shamar situation, as sad as it is, I feel like that happens to a lot of kids. When I know someone just said that, people are hyping him and putting basketball before his well-being, his education, his his place to live and things like that. And I think a lot of that happens more than people think. I think more inner city situations and kids that are looking at basketball as a way to improve their lives or take care of their families. A lot of those important life lessons are put on the back burner, and then kids end up in that kind of situation. And he's living proof that not every good basketball player is a good teammate. And so where I went to JUCO, and even the way that we run the high school that I coach at, I would rather have a good teammate, someone who's going to hype up their team on the bench, someone who's going to jump up and give fives and run out on the court during the timeout and tell their players they're doing great. And when they're on the bench, keep their heads up, stay ready to play, instead of pouting about, I shouldn't be here, I should be on the court. From a coaching standpoint, even with high school kids, I'm dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old 6A varsity kids, and that's annoying at that level. So I couldn't even imagine at a collegiate level how much harder that's going to be. And then once he gets to a Division 1 school or a 4-year school, then that coach is going to have to deal with that problem too. And so I think there's a lot of that going on. And as sad as it is, it's almost like we need to get more coaches in that AAU world and in that high school world to understand that everything, playing time, starting roles, team captain roles, how many shots you get to take a game, everything at a high level of basketball from high school up, even in some of the AAU programs, it needs to be earned and not just given. And I think as coaches, when we just put the cart before the horse, then when it's time for the cart to move and we don't have no horsepower behind it, then we're fighting these uphill battles with these players. And so I've made it a point at my high school, I've benched my starting point guard for other guys. I brought guys off the bench, and I said it's got to be earned. Every day you're earning those minutes on Tuesday and Friday. You're earning those on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so I think as coaches, it seems like we got a good group here that are doing it the right way. And if we get more coaches that can kind of create that change in the mentality from day one when they get on on the floor, we run into less of the Shamar situations and less of these players that feel entitled to something because, oh, I won state championships in high school, so I should be able to play the whole game. So that's kind of my 2 cents, but I really do appreciate you, one, putting this space together. Two, I love all the coaches that have all spoken. I've even went out and followed a couple of you guys throughout this space, and so definitely keep me in mind next time you do a follow-up space, because I'd love to listen in on that one as well.
I appreciate it. Brendan, any advice or anything you want to share from a player's perspective about JUCO? Please speak.
Yeah, just don't take it for granted. I mean, if you asked me a few years ago what I thought of JUCO, I probably wouldn't have the highest regards for it in high school. But after playing in it and being recruited in it, it's honestly just a blessing to be here. Like I've met a lot of people where this is their only option to continue their basketball career. Like if they didn't have this one national JUCO offer, this one opportunity at a California JUCO, like their basketball career is done. So being in my shoes, is like you have to take that. You can't take that for granted. Like it's really a blessing to still be playing basketball at the collegiate level and anything past that. And especially like a lot of these national JUCOs that I've been able to see, some of them have better facilities than like Division Ones. Like we've also like scrimmage Division Ones, Division Twos, and a lot of national JUCOs in our league have beaten them. Like playing at this level isn't just for anybody. Like you really do have to want it. Like you can't just come in lackadaisical and just think, oh, I'm better than this. Like I'm gonna play. Like a lot of these people, like it's really their livelihood here. So if you're gonna play collegiate basketball in general, any level, D1 to JUCO, like be prepared to work every day. Like a lot of people are out here grinding for their actual lives.
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I am going to have a follow-up space because there are questions I did not get to. So I am going to have a follow-up space to discuss JUCO because this world is new to a lot of people. Like, it's really new. And I think Last Chance U has exposed it for everyone to understand that there is another world of basketball that you don't know about, that we don't know how it works. And it looks like to be a grind. I even follow some of the players after to see how they're doing, where did they end up afterwards. So you get attached to some of these players. And I just was curious about the world, and I'm continuing to be curious about the world as well as AAU. So there will be future spaces on more with regards to JUCO and AAU. I appreciate you, Coach Sandra, especially for coming up because I really wanted to hear a woman's coach's perspective. Coach Bree Brooks was supposed to do that, but she has a massive power issues and dealing with some bad weather in Texas, so she could not stay to give that perspective. And I really appreciate what everyone brought to the conversation to really, for anyone that's listening now or will listen to this space, can know a little bit more about this world and not just what they see on TV. What is behind what they see on TV? Like, what is this world that you're looking at? And so I appreciate your perspective. This is the first space, but will not be the last. The Rewind is a space where we discuss topics affecting sports, mainly basketball, that you will not see on the First Takes, on the Undisputed. We talk about history a lot, but we also talk about these type of topics. So if you want to get involved and want to talk about other things besides who the GOAT is, then I'm your follow. Check me out. My next space is going to be a dedication to Dr. J. And I will next month, I'm going to have a follow up space on JUCO, incorporating basketball and the football perspective. And I'm also going to have a follow up. I'm going to have a first space on how AAU works because that's another world I'm just curious about. So if you have any questions, definitely slide in DM, and I will follow up regarding the follow up spaces coming up next month. So thanks everyone for stopping through, especially the speakers. Really appreciate you giving your perspective. Have a good evening, have a great weekend, and happy New Year. And thanks for tuning in to the Rewind. And if you're a JUCO coach or a player, please follow me and inbox me so you can be in the next chat. Thanks. Have a great one.